So you've been approved, they ran the background check, everything's ready to be signed, and the landlord now requires you to carry renter's insurance. And today we're going to answer the major question is, why is renter's insurance required? As well as I'm actually going to give you some workarounds to find some of the least expensive or the cheapest ways to get out of that while having renter's insurance. So to contradict my answer to the question is, it's actually not required. It's not specifically in any specific state that I'm aware of, and you guys can comment below if I'm missing any, that requires renter's insurance, period. It's something that the landlord does to protect their investment. It's very similar to if you were to buy a house and you got a loan on the house, that loan company would require you to purchase home insurance. Renter's insurance is similar to that, where it's not because you own a home or you have a loan, but there's a risk there. Just like if you lost the house and the house burnt down, they're not going to expect you to have the money to pay for it, so they want the insurance to pay the debt on that. Well, if you had something happen that was a claim that was your fault, the landlord wants you to have insurance that pays a liability amount towards that building or towards that situation that came up. So let's dive in a little bit further. To answer this question, let's look at why a landlord wants you to have a policy. If you're like most people, they actually have a specific amount. Typically, you don't see a landlord that'll let you do $100,000 liability. They'll let you do $300,000 or $500,000. That's the two most common renters policies that you can get. Actually, what I do is when I talk to people, because a lot of insurances are cheaper when you combine auto and renters. So the way I explain it to customers is it's kind of buying a liability policy. Because most people, if you're renting, if you're just starting off renting, you're going to borrow a couch from somebody. You've got your clothes. You might have some gear or some like activities that you're invested in, but you really don't own a whole lot. If you add it all up, if you took the rooms that you had and went around each room, you're typically going to find that you're going to have $3,000 to $5,000 per room that you have in the home. So if you figure a 2-bedroom house, you got to add the bathroom, you got to add the kitchen, you got to add the living room. So you're going to have roughly about $25,000 worth of renter's insurance that you should go towards. If you don't have that much, it's not required that you have a specific amount. I believe the minimum that I've ever seen anyone do is $10,000. I don't know if there's a cap that goes below it. I've never really tried to go that low because after a while, it doesn't make any difference to have that low of an amount. But the landlord doesn't care how much you carry in personal property because that's just your stuff. That's your TV, your couch, your wallet. If you were to shake the building, anything that fell out that you owned, that's your personal property. They're more concerned about the liability portion, which is that $100,000, the $300,000, or the $500,000 limit. You can go higher than that, but it doesn't typically go above that. You fell asleep and you had the candle lit. Assuming that you have pets, or just assuming that the candle was on the edge of a desk and somehow fell, it lit the building on fire. The landlord has insurance for the building, but that company is going to go after you, the tenant, who started the fire. It's actually happened before where someone was actually in the hospital and they got served a lawsuit paperwork from an insurance company because of a fire that they started. They were liable for that claim, and if they didn't have the right coverage, then they weren't going to be covered at all. Well, that's not the major piece that the landlords are looking towards. They're more concerned about the liability risk. You come over, you visit, you've got a couple friends that come with you, and those friends have something go crazy. It's really your responsibility to take care of the rental dwelling that you're in. It's your responsibility to make sure everything's safe. If you have shoes laying all over the floor, a friend comes over, trips, falls, and hits their head, that could turn into a concussion, a night in the hospital, could be a $300,000 claim. Well, they normally would sue the landlord, but because the landlord has forced you to carry insurance, the liability portion, they're going to go after your insurance because the landlord's still going to deny that claim, but they have to fight it. And the fighting it is what costs them money. What they're internally doing is they're forcing you to fight the claim, not them. So depending when you watch this video, the Tiger King was a thing. And this is my best example I can give you is the lawsuit that happened between the two, Carol Baskin and the guy that was the Tiger King. If you looked in, I believe it's episode like 6 or 7, they talk about the lawsuit where Carol Baskin won, but it cost her over $1 million to fight that claim. Her perpetuity was $1 million. So she actually lost money to win that lawsuit. That's why you hear in most lawsuits, lawyers are the ones that win. Not to say anything bad against lawyers, because you need them in certain points. But if you're going to have a problem where it was your fault and something happened due to your negligence, the landlord wants to have your insurance pick up that fight instead of their insurance picking up that fight. Now, if there is another situation where, assuming the roof caved in and the landlord was aware of it and you told them and something happened that was negligent on their part, that's where their insurance is going to kick in. So they already know that part of it, but they're more scared about the part that yours is going to carry. So to recap the end of this video, that's essentially the reason that it's required is to protect the building and the assets and their liability portion of that. If something goes negligent, they've got money to go after, because if you do have a claim and it is your fault and you don't have renter's insurance, you've only got so much money that they can get from you. And if they can't claim it correctly, assuming that the landlord had some sort of hook where they didn't have enough coverage, now it's their point where they're going to go after your insurance, because you may only have a few $1,000s worth of stuff they can go after, but your insurance policy is going to have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars that they can take from it. And it's fair. It's essentially paying them back for any damages that were done or anything that had happened due to some sort of negligence or just a mistake. So companies that you should look into for renter's insurance. The very first place I would check is the person that you have your auto with. What I tell people more often than not, there's usually about a 15 to 25% discount on your auto insurance if you add a renter's policy. So you actually might even get the renter's policy technically for free, or it might even pay you money to have that renter's policy. It's really easy to find out if you're going to be negative or not, is because if you're paying $200 or $300 or more for car insurance, then you're probably going to save somewhere around $30 to $40 for your auto, in which case you're going to only pay about $20 to $30 for the renters. It's really basic stuff. Now, I actually used to sell insurance in about 45 states, and renters was almost the same across the board. Unless you're in a major high population area, you can just plan on the cost of renter's insurance being right around that $12 on the low end and $25 on the high end. Most commonly, I just tell customers about $18 a month, because that's what I found to be the most common. It ranged between $15 and $18 per month almost every single time. The only time it would go over that is, like I said, high population area or heavy claims area where there's a lot of theft or fraud or things like that. It's just a worse neighborhood, so to speak. Or that you have a lot more stuff. You have guns to protect, paintings to protect, more jewelry. You want $80,000 instead of the $30,000 common renter's policy. Now, there's actually two companies that I would lean towards myself for renter's insurance. And from my experience and all the reviews that I've done on this channel, there's two companies. So the first one is Progressive. Progressive, you know, the lowest that you can do, at least in my state, is $125 per year. So you're just over $10 to $11 per month. They usually have really good coverage. They offer different deductibles. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. And I'm actually going to make a further video that goes more in depth on like the pieces of a renter's policy. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely subscribe below and then turn the bell icon on so when that video comes live, you'll have it available. The other and the second company that I would lean towards is Lemonade Insurance. It's pretty much a direct competitor with everybody who wants renter's insurance. I'll link a video up here where I actually did a review over Lemonade Insurance, where I actually did a live quote for renter's policy, and they won. They actually beat out most of the companies that I went through, and they were right around that $8 to $12 mark for just a basic renter's policy. The main difference between the two is the Progressive, you can go to a live agent, talk to them, get it explained with them, figure out what the right path for you is if you care that far into that policy. Because if you're going to pay for it, you might as well make sure you get some good coverages with it. Where the Lemonade policy is more of a bot system. It's no live people. You're talking to a robot, or you're texting through a system or going through their app, and they just give you a price. If you like it, you buy it. If you file a claim, it goes through their system, where there's not really a whole lot of human interaction in general until you actually have like a claim where they have to talk to you. In most cases, you still start the claim on the bot and go through the whole process. So I'm curious what you guys have found. Let me know what companies have been competitive in your area. Leave that in the comments below and share that with other people so they know what companies they can look towards. I hope you guys like the information. Subscribe if you want more tips and advice that help you save time and money on your insurance policies. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.